Well, we have to wait a couple of minutes more. Just people is starting to join the meeting.
Ah, okay. Okay, so I'll wait.
Yeah, they were waiting for the opening of the link, I think.
Okay,
Yes.
you tell me when I can start, but maybe you can
They are
stop the
already in.
registration.
They are already in.
Miguel.
They were in the waiting room. So now, if you want to start, they are already 36 people in there.
You have to tell me when I have to start. It's up to you.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe Carlos, you can present me and then I can start.
Yeah.
What?
You can introduce me.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
now I think we have almost 50 people or more.
Yeah.
But there is a way to look only to Anna while I am presenting her or not?
Yeah, we need to turn off our cameras.
What?
Everybody needs to turn off the camera. So Anna is the only one.
Well, and myself.
Yeah,
yourself, yes.
Do you think we start or?
Yeah, let's start.
Everybody is listening now in the room or not?
They can talk, but we can hear you.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Yes, you may start.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Well, I first gonna tell some words in Spanish, Anna, and then I switch to English. Ya, hola a todos en la sala. Vamos a iniciar esta conferencia y la vamos a iniciar en inglés. Así que me voy a cambiar a presentar a nuestra invitada de hoy y la voy a presentar en inglés. Nada más una invitación que las preguntas que vayan a hacer las hagan en el question and answer opción escritas o en el chat. Así que, okay, let's start. It is a great pleasure for me to present Professoressa Anna Esposito, who received her Laura degree with summa cum laude from University of Salerno, with a thesis on neural networks published on complex systems in 1992. She received the PhD degree in applied math and computer science from University of Naples, Federico II, with a PhD thesis published on phonetica. And she developed this thesis at the MIT in the USA. She has been postdoc at the International Institute for Advanced Scientific Studies and assistant professor at University of Salerno in the Department of Physics, where she taught cybernetics, neural networks, and speech processing during 1996 to 2000. She held a research professor position at Wright State University Department of Computer Science and Engineering in Ohio, USA. At present, Anna is Associate Professor in Computer Science at University della Campania, Luigi Vanvitelli, from 2003 to date, teaching cognitive and algorithmic issues of multimodal communication, social network dynamics, cognitive economy, and decision-making, and where she is the director of the Behaving Cognitive Systems Laboratory. She has authored more than 250 peer-reviewed publications and edited and co-edited more than 30 international books. Currently, The lab is participating to the Age 2020 funded projects Emphatic and Menhir, and from the National Italian funded projects C-Robotics and Androids. I just like to add that I had the opportunity to work under her direction during a 1-year postdoc year stay at IIASS in Vietri sul Mare, a beautiful place in Italy. So it is an honor for me to be introducing her for you. I leave you with Professoressa Anna Esposito presenting needs and challenge in processing social information. And at the end, you can write your question in question and answer option, which will be answered at the end of the talk. So welcome, Anna, and start your speech, please.
Okay. Good morning to everyone. In Italy, it's afternoon at this point. It's 4 o'clock. I would like to thank Alicia and Carlos for inviting me to this talk. And I hope to give you some new idea for your research and for your work. So I am working, as Carlos say, at the Universita della Campania Luigi Vanvitelli, and I am associate researcher at the International Institute for Advanced Scientific Study, where also Carlos has been hosted for 1 year. And also for me, it has been a pleasure to work with him. And today, in this talk, Need and Challenge in Processing the Social Information, I would like to discuss of three topics. One topic describes the synchrony between speech and gesture. The other topic describes the difference between typical and deaf subject in assessing emotional facial expression. And the other topic, if there is time, is the role of gestural emblem in processing semantic information. These are part of my research, which is very multidisciplinary, but has a sense, has a meaning. Has a meaning because my research is devoted to the implementation of socially and emotionally believable human-machine interaction. So what we want is to create a virtual assistant, assistive technology that are socially and emotionally believable. And the most important question behind this research is, do we really need this emotionally and socially believable interaction with the machine? So, to this question, in my opinion, the answer is yes. Is yes because, for example, in this last year, we assisted to the aging of people. So the world population become more and more aged, and in the next year, we have to face the need of find caregiver that can assist these old people. But then there is a need to find this social caregiver, and they are not so easy to find. So there is the risk that the people will be left alone without any support. So an emotionally believable machine, a virtual assistant, may, if not completely provide the same assistant that the human can do, at least allow these people to assist during the day, check for their medicine, check for their need, call the emergency in the case there is something that happens. So this is a need for the future. And then we have to think how this assistance, as this assistive technology should be accepted by the human that need them. So I think that in order that the machine will be accepted, we need to make them emotionally, socially believable. And in doing this, we have some need. So we need that this human-computer interface should appear and should behave socially. In this case, they should let to the people to feel comfortable. And they should arouse the trust of the user. So the user should believe in them, should think that they can help them. So, and this is important in order to create an empathic relationship with the machine. But then any individual has some cognitive competencies, and any individual is embedded in a social culture. So the machine should consider the social rule and the cognitive competence of its user in order to provide a personalized support. And this kind of need implicates some big challenge. Implicated that in developing assistive technology, we need to understand context effect, we need to understand language effect, and we need to understand how the dynamic of signal exchange change meaning during the interaction. We need to take into account cultural differences and more. So this challenge means that we need to a certain extent not only develop smart algorithms, but this smart algorithm should account of context, language, cultural difference. But how much we know of this? So the question is how much we know of the need of the user. And to model this in a machine, we need to make experiment in order to assess in this dynamic of signal exchange what happens and how it can be modeled. So for this reason, for example, I am speaking with you in this moment, and I don't know if you can see me, but while I am speaking, I am also gesturing. And why I am gesturing is a nice question. And it has been investigated by different people. And one of the big question is how much gesturing is connected with the speech. In this particular talk, what I want to highlight is the relationship between speech and gesture, in particular between pause. So if you look at me while I am speaking, I am when I do some speech pause, I pause also with my hand. And this means that there is something that put me in a condition to connect, to synchronize together my gesturing with my speech. So what is the role of this gesturing during the communication? And then once we have find this, the idea is if there is a synchron between speech and gesture, how it develop during the childhood. So this is the first question, and in order to do this, I would like to say that the role of gesture in communication has been debated for a long time. The most big exponent of this topic were David McNeill, Adam Kendon, and Robert Krauss. And these three big exponents, they have a different idea of what is the role of gesture in communication. For Krauss and for his colleague, gesture seems to be useful in order to support the user while speaking. So the speaker uses gesture as a support while speaking. But then McNeill and Kendon, they didn't agree on this vision of gesture, and they think that gesture have the similar pragmatic and semantic function than speech. So we cannot assign to gesture a secondary role to the speech. But this debate has never ended and is still discussed. So in order to find some support to one of these two theories, we started an experiment. And our experiment, instead of considering speech, we're considering what we call the pause that we do during speech. So there is the speech pause, the pause that we do during the speech, are a multifunctional and multi-determined phenomenon, because they solve a lot of functions. They solve the function to give a break to the listener in order to understand the speaker. Because if the speaker speaks without never stopping, the listener gets too much tired. But they have also the function of structuring the discourse, and they may have also another function, a cognitive function, which is associated to the effort, the cognitive effort that the speaker does in order to communicate its own thinking. So the pause are a very complicated phenomenon, and inside the gesture, inside the gesture, we were looking if there is something similar to speech pause in the gesturing. And we were looking for something that is similar to the pause we do in speech. And once we have found this entity, we were trying to figure out if they are synchronized with the speech, and if there is any difference between children and adults. Why is that? You may imagine that you are speaking with your virtual assistant, and your virtual assistant is telling, okay, take that, is making a deictic gesture, in the case indicating something. If we say take that and then do the gesture, it looks strange to the people. It's not usual if there is no synchronization. So we need to know how this aspect in communication evolve in order to make our system similar and naturally interacting with humans. So in this context, we do some experiment, and the experiment involved 6 female children, very close in the age. They were 9 years old, and 4 adults. And then we asked them to watch a cartoon which is a Sylvester and Tweety cartoon, where Sylvester tried to catch Titi. I don't know. I think that this is a very common cartoon for the children. So the cat tried to catch the bird and is always spoiled by the bird. And we asked to the children and to the adults to narrate, so to use a narrative to report once they've seen this cartoon, to report this episode, okay? Without telling them that our intent was to observe their gesture, how they gesture in reporting this episode that they have just seen. And we analyzed the video because the participants were video recorded, and we have a video data with that were analyzed frame by frame, and the speech was analyzed by speech station. And both the video and the data were analyzed perceptually. So just to give you some definition that are used in this talk, maybe it's better I will make an example. For example, listen.
Okay, what we need to do.
So you have listened to this sentence. The girl is saying, okay, what we need to do. And okay is a clause, is a set of words grouped together on a functional basis. And after saying okay, the speaker make an empty pause.
Okay, what we need to do.
And then she say what we need to do. And what we need to do is another clause. So essentially a clause is a group of words tied together on a functional basis and preceded and followed by a pause. And an empty pause is silence, which can be seen here in the spectrogram where there is no signal, while a filled pause is something like this. Okay. And the video that we were using were this kind of video.
Mette una scatola.
So this is a girl reporting about the cartoon. This is an Italian girl. This one.
So then the picture goes to Sylvester and he immediately runs down.
This is a girl from US. This data were collected in US. And this one is a patient with Wernicke aphasia. So this kind is a person that really cannot, or at least he can speak fluently, but then his speech cannot be understood because has no meaning. But as you can see, he is gesturing too. Maybe this is not a good example. And we compared the children's speech with the adult speech, and we were looking to the percentage of overlaps of pause in speech. And when I say pause in speech, I mean empty pause and filled pause, and pause in gestures. So when the speaker is pausing either with voice and with gestures. And you can see that the children, the 85% of pause of the children were overlapping with the pause in gesture. And the 83% of pause in adults were overlapping with their pause in gesture. So this is something very, very strong. So pause in speech and in gesture are to a certain extent if not strongly synchronized, but sufficiently synchronized to say that they happen in the similar moment. So the statistics say that the correlation is strong, and the ANOVA analysis find that there are no significant difference were found between in children between pause and hold. So the number of the pause and the number of gesture was the same, was more or less the same. So we have done an ANOVA analysis where for each group, hold and speech pause rate were considered within subject variable, and we didn't find any significant difference for children, because we assumed that the significance should have been to alpha equal to 0.01. So 0.32 is very high. It's not significant. While we find a significant difference between the pause rate in adults. So the adults make much more hold than much more gesture pause than speech pause. So we try to figure out why this is that, and what is the role of speech pause and gesture pause. So how the pause in speech can be connected with the pause in gesture. And from a cognitive point of view, the pause in speech most of the time allow to replace a given spoken content with a new one, while the pause in gesture we suggested allow to replace a given bodily action with a new one. So there is an intimate semantic and pragmatic function between pause in speech and pause in gesture. And this synchrony is important, is very important for during the dynamic of exchange in communication. Okay, I don't want to go in this detail. I want just to tell you one more result that we get from this data was we repeated this experiment involving children from 9 years old, children from 5 years old, and children from 3 years old. So we do a comparative study along the years to see when this synchrony happens. And we have this girl, for example, is a 3 years old girl. So I want to, this is a moment where the girl is making a pose. This is, okay, doesn't matter. This is a 5 years old boy and this is a 9 years old girl. But the statistics say that there is a correlation between pause in speech and pause in gesture for 3 years old children. There is a correlation for pause in speech and pause in gesture for 9 years old children and for adults. But for 5 years old children, we didn't find a correlation. So this was a strange result. And we tried to find an explanation, a meaning, which was associated with the theory of mind, because the theory of mind say that at 5 years, between 4.5 and 5 years, the children acquire the conception of the belief of the other people. So they really started to feel the other and things how they can how the other behave. So maybe in this phase of the grow, they feel more shy because they become protagonists of the world with the consciousness. They acquire some social consciousness. So this was our explanation, but a lot needed to be more investigated. And among the things that I think need further investigation is the relevance of speaker and listener in patterning speech and gesture pose, and the role of speech and gesture in signaling engagement and disengagement of the speaker. So this is one aspect, and we have seen that there is a behavior that if we wanted to model this behavior in assistive technology, what we need to do is keep in mind that there is a synchronization between the speech and gesture. What we need to do is to make this synchronization believable in order to have a fair human-machine interaction. Okay, so this is another topic in which we are assessing deaf people, checking how they are able to recognize emotional face. Why we were using deaf subject? There is a reason here. The sign language, when you communicate through sign language, you use face to express some aspect of your message. So in sign language, face bring kind of semantic information, not only emotion, but the face is used as a sign too. So in this context, we were imagining that if you use a sign language, your emotion should be, your template of emotional face should be different. And so we were checking this with an experiment. And the experiment involved 14 deaf subjects, 8 female, and 14 hearing subjects, 6 female. The age was more or less similar between the subject, and the education was more or less the same. And this subject were asked to, okay, we have this emotion, happiness, sadness, anger, surprise. This is a public available database, fear and disgust. This is called the Rabo database and was made public in 2010. And he has a frontal and left and right face. So you can use them either in a frontal way, but we take only frontal stimuli. And we consider the 6 basic emotions that were sustained by Ekman. So the emotion of happiness, sadness, surprise, and disgust. And these are examples, but for example, for happiness, we consider 2 male and 2 female. For sadness, 2 male and 2 female. Anger, 2 male and 2 female, and so on. Each subject was tested individually in a private room, and the deaf people were debriefed by a qualified interpreter, because for us it was difficult to communicate with the deaf people without sign language. Okay, the choice of when the participants were asked to give a label to this phase, the list of options was not only the sixth emotion, but was also, they can also say, this phase doesn't show an emotion in this list, and or can say this phase doesn't show any emotional display. It doesn't look an emotion for me. And the participant, both the participants have to rate, have to assign a label to the phase, one of these labels, and also evaluate the intensity degree of the expressed emotion. Starting for 0, there is not an emotional intensity. To 9 is a very intense emotion. This phase is expressing this emotion very intensely. Okay, so there are some things that are tricky in this experiment, because this is not a forced choice experiment. So this is because the participant is not forced to choose only between the 6 emotions that we have, but is much more free to say, no, for me this is not happiness, rather is another emotion which is not in the list. And can also say, for me there is no emotion in this space, which is much complicated and did not ensure, and I may affect the recognition accuracy. This is the confusion matrix of the data. So in the upper you have the depth, and in the top you have the depth, and in the bottom you have the typical hearing subject. And on the diagonal of this matrix, you see the correct label, the percentage of correct label attributed to the emotion. And on each row, you see, for example, sadness is correctly identified by the deaf for 50% of 50%. Is confused with happiness, but only once. Is confused with fear, but then most of the time, sadness is interpreted with another emotion by the deaf, or with the no emotion. Happiness is the most accurately recognized, but even is confused. The rest of happiness is confused with another emotion, and so on. The emotions that are not, so you can see here, there is something in this yellow part where the recognition of this phase didn't even not reach the 50%. And this is for fear, for disgust, surprise, and anger. The hearing people do much better in this case. So fear, disgust, surprise, and anger are differently recognized by the deaf with respect to the typical hearing people. And this is proved by a statistical analysis that showed that there is a statistical significance difference in the accuracy. And you can see in this graph the hearing subject are in red. I think so there is yeah, the hearing subjects are in red and the deaf are in blue. And you can see the big difference for anger, surprise, and disgust. The same happens for the intensity. So most of the deaf didn't, the mean of the intensity was very low for disgust, surprise, and anger. So meaning that they didn't find a very intense emotion. Not only they acknowledge this emotion, but when they acknowledge correctly this emotion, they attributed to this emotion an intensity very low. Meaning that the face did not express significantly this emotion, so they find difficult. And this is the same here in the graph, but this is proved to be statistical significance. And then this result tell us something very, very interesting. So if the user of an assistive technology is deaf, you should not expect that showing the same emotional face that you are showing to a typical hearing person, he react to the same way. In particular, he may not understood the emotion of surprise or disgust, anger, and fear, because and even be less good in acknowledging emotion of sadness, for example, or happiness. Okay, and this I'm checking my time, hoping that I am still in time. And this last topic is about gestural emblems. What are gestural emblems? So I think so that you have to first see. I don't know if no. Okay. So I will explain you. If in Italy I say a friend of mine far, I will look at him and say, without speaking. This gesture is an emblem. He has a linguistic meaning without using speech. But then people, most of the time, say, come on, come on. So they use both the speech and the gesture. It seems that this is a redundancy. The emblems are not the same in all the cultures. For example, this emblem here, which means shame, is not an emblem of the Italian culture. We don't have this emblem, but it is strongly used in US culture. A lot of American friends, when they want to kid me, they say, shame on you, and do this gesture. And at the beginning, I was always telling what is all about. So emblems are shaped by the culture, are used intentionally, and most of the time are redundantly used. Why humans are using this redundant information? So we were trying to explain this, and in order to do this, we recruited 140 subjects, 67 female and 73 male. These were all students at the University of Salerno, and they were aged between 18 and 35 years. And we presented 50 words in 4 different conditions. So the only auditory, so they were only listening the word. Only with gesture. So, for example, come on, vieni, vieni, come on. We will say only come on. Well, sorry, that's the strong. You see how much stronger culturally is this synchrony between gesture. I really cannot avoid to make the gesture while telling the word. So we have only the auditory, so only come on, and then we have come on, but without speech. And then we have the complex auditory situation is when you see. So we have only auditory, you can hear only come on. Only gesture, you see only the gesture. Complex auditory is when you see my face and me doing the gesture, but without the speech. And multimodal information is when I say, come on, and you have everything. You have the multimodality function. So we have made this experiment, and the words were I, and then telephone, and then you have a pen, and then driving, and then picture, and then drinking, and then small, and then key, and then watch, and then eating, and then smoking, sleeping, cutting, binocular, prying. So this were the gesture. I make everything. So we have one video where it's black, and there was only listening. Then we have only the gesture. Okay, so complex auditory is when you say the word, but you don't move. You say only come on without doing anything. And then you have the multimodal, which is the complete. So I was wrong in the other explanation. We divided the participants in 4 separate groups, and each group involved 35 subjects, equally distributed by gender. And then after we have shown them in different conditions, we asked to write down as much as many words they could remember of these 15. And when we do the scoring, we consider the correct, for example, if instead of driving, they say car, we consider this semantically connected. So we consider correct. Of greeting instead of I is semantically correct. Okay, we do the usual evaluation using statistical analysis, univariate ANOVA, and repeated measure ANOVA, and these are the results. So the violet is the percentage of correct word with only gesture. The yellow is the percentage of correct word with only listening. The green is the percentage of the complex auditory situation. So when I say come on without doing nothing, without doing any gesture, but you see my face. And the multimodal is the blue. So you can see that only gesture and multimodal seems much better than complex auditory or only auditory. And there is another interesting result. Female were better than male. So the percentage of correct words by female is better than male. Okay, this is the statistical, and the statistics say this difference. There is a significant difference between only gesture, complex auditory, only auditory and multimodal, and there is a significant difference between male and female. And then for the rest, there was no interaction. So you didn't find any interaction. There are some curiosity that the multimodal condition was the best, and the female were the best were remembering much more than male. And one of the curiosity was that the word I was one of the words that was recalled by most, and the word K was the less recalled. Okay. So now you were thinking this lady is doing some joke with her experiment, but what would be the meaning of all of this? So clearly you have seen here that there is a difference when you use come on with respect to come on. So why is that, and why it can be important? You can ask yourself. You may say, why we have to do this? I think so that the secret is in the fact that when we are interacting, we didn't care of what we do. We didn't realize the complexity we use in communicate our thinking. And then it is clear that when someone implements the best virtual agent and say, oh, look, this is a very interesting virtual agent, is able to speak and speak very well, is made with a very good synthesis, then we will look at these agents and say, it's strange to me. It's strange to me. It doesn't look natural to me. It doesn't seem emotionally believable to me. It doesn't seem to me socially believable. So, but we don't know why. So why is it not socially believable? He's speaking so well, and he's moving his face correctly. Because of these small details, which are not at all small, which are what make rich our communication. So this kind of experiment tell us that when we want to implement some socially, emotionally believable cognitive system, we have to make a deep investigation on what occurs at the cognitive and emotional level of the final user, because the final user should be okay with the system that should support it. Particularly if this final user is a vulnerable people, like an elder, like an old person which live alone, or like a children which may have some impairment. And therefore, after having considered the relevant consequence at the cognitive and emotional level of the final user, we have to find a way to efficiently model the signal, the communicative signal of the user, his belief, his competence, and the environmental information in order to provide with our assistant, our cognitive, our emotionally, socially believable cognitive system, in order to provide them the relevant feedback a service is asking for. And I have closed. I don't have too much to say. I want to say that this study are part of some project we are running in our laboratory. One project is Empathic, which is devoted to develop a virtual coach for elders. And the other project is MENIR, which means mental health monitoring, and is devoted to produce some chatbot for assist depressed people. And then we have the Italian founded project Androids, which is the Italian version of many, because it's devoted to develop a system that capture from behavior, from voice, speech, and expression, gestural expression and facial expression, information about the emotional and emotional state of the user, and therefore it's able to discriminate between depressed and non-depressed people. And the project SI Robotics, which is still founded by Italy at the Italian Institute for Advanced Scientific Study. And this project is devoted to develop some robotic system devoted to assist elder people. And our part in this project is to provide the guideline for the acceptance of this system from their final user, which are elder. And when we say acceptance, we mean that in this particular context, we want to know what the elders are asking to this system, how they should appear for them, how they should behave for them, in order for the elder to consider this robotic system really able to assist them during their everyday routine. Thank you so much.
Hey. Thank you very much, Anna. So we
Thank
are
you.
now going to the question and answer session.
Okay, I have to go in the chat.
Excuse me?
Where are the question and answer?
No, I'm gonna read them to you.
Ah, okay. Okay.
Well, the first one is from Eduardo Morales. Is thanks very much for your
It's in English.
Yes. How to include gestures in a multicultural context where gestures may mean different things, and some cultures may use more or less gestures in their communication.
Okay, so this is a good question, Eduardo. Thank you for your question, but you know, I am speaking about personalized support. And I don't want to develop a system that is include a gesture for everyone, for any culture. The system should be context embedded. And when I say context embedded, it means that they should be personalized to the culture and the need of the user. So if the user is from Mexico, I would not expect that his gestures are the same than from Italian. So there is a need to study which are the gestures that the Mexican use for discussing, which are the gestures that the Mexican use for communicating, which are the emblem, the most important. Some may be shared in a multicultural way, some may not. But since here we are creating a machine for supporting people, not for supporting vulnerable people. So we want that they feel comfortable with the system. So in a multicultural environment, I may not use all the gestures, but I will use for each cultural environment the right gesture. It's,
Okay.
do you think it's, I answer to your question?
I think so, but yes, thanks is the answer.
Thank you, Eduardo.
Now is from Hector Cardenas. Apart from the application on virtual coaches, what are other applications possible for this kind of technology? I mean, used for digestion plus audio-based recognition.
Okay. What are the applications for gesture plus audio-based recognition? I think so that robotics is one of the big fields where we expect that they are able to recognize speech, but they are also able to gesture appropriately, no? So any robotic assistant endowed of the right gesture and the right speech recognition system is surely more natural than a robotic system that is only speaking.
Okay. So it was answered the question, Hector.
Hector, it's okay for you?
He say yes in the
Yeah.
chat.
Okay,
There is a question in the chat, Carlos Alberto,
in the chat.
from Aldo.
Wait. So, Aldo, what software or classifier they use to validate the emotions that people felt during the experiment?
Yeah, okay. I think that the experiment I show you were not so the subject, the accuracy was on the people. So there was not a classifier, an automatic classifier that validated the emotion. There was people that I show them the face and they should tell me, oh, this is an expression of happiness. So the accuracy was referred to the people, to human, not to the, not to the, was not automatic. This is something that one should consider very careful, because as you can see, even typical hearing people, for example, in the experiment with the deaf and typical hearing people, even typical hearing people did not have ENAIC accuracy in recognizing emotion. So I don't know if you remember this. I don't know if you can you see my screen, Marco, Carlos? Can you see my screen? Oh, okay.
Yeah, we are looking.
Okay. Okay. I want you to see this result here. For example, the accuracy between deaf and hearing subject, okay? And you see that the typical hearing subject did not recognize fear 100%. And even did not recognize disgust 100%. And surprise and anger. To be honest, the hearing subject were very poor in recognizing anger, disgust, fear, and sadness. Even they were typical hearing. So this means that it's not true that humans recognize very well the emotion. Recognize very well the facial expression of emotion. This means that there is something more deep inside. First, that, for example, this face, these faces are not typical Italian faces. So we don't have, these are Dutch faces. The Italian were not so good. So they were good with happiness. Happiness, everyone is good. They were good, but for the rest, even there is a big difference between deaf and hearing people. The hearing people did not do so high for sadness, for fear, for disgust, for anger. They make a lot of confusion. And one of the first reasons for this confusion is the context is not typical Italian. These are not Italian faces. But there is another reason. So it is not true that we have a template, a universal template of facial emotional expression. We have a personal template of facial emotional expression. And this is the template that we built it up along our childhood, looking at our parents and the people around us. So we were not born with an innate capacity to recognize emotional facial expression. And this is something very revolutionary, because up to now, the belief is that facial emotional expression were universal and were innate to a certain extent. But the new kind of research is proving more and more, new investigation, recent investigation, were showing more and more that this is not true. There is a cultural effect, there is an age effect, there is an environment effect. So there is maybe we universally have a similar feeling of happiness, sadness, but in expressing this feeling, we use different expressions, not the same in every culture, not the same in every person. And only when we know very well each other, we can really figure out if the person we are interacting with 100% is happy or sad. Then in other contexts, we may guess, or we may use other information that come from the context around. And this is something new in the field of detection and recognition of emotional phase. Is a new approach in this last year, given that everyone is acknowledging that there are a lot of variables affecting the expression of a face. There are even personal traits. Some people are extroverts and they show their own emotion. Some people are very introverts and they did not show their own emotion. So it's difficult to figure out what they feel.
Okay. But the question was on the software and the classifier you used for that experiment.
But I didn't use a classifier. These were human beings.
Okay, you didn't use any classifier.
No, this data came from human beings.
Okay.
Human subject.
Well, another question from Horacio.
So the classifier would be very, sometimes in this case, automatic classification is better than human.
Well, sometimes, yes. Not always. Well, another question is, how long it took to carry on this research?
Okay, this research take time to be carried out, because when you deal with human, you have to deal first of all with ethical issues. Involving human in the experiment require the approval of ethical committee and require that you present first of all a request to the ethical committee of your university that allow you to perform the research. So this is the first, and then you have to find the subject, and then you have to be sure that everything, privacy, anonymity is kept, and there is no danger for the people. And then you have also to establish the setup of the experiment. So this kind of experiment working after the ethical committee approval may take from 6 to 8 months to get to the final result. But depends also on the number of subjects you are involved in.
Okay. Now from Miguel Mora, probably you know him. What can you share about gesture synchronization in family? Gesture synchronization in family.
Yeah, I understand. Gesture synchronization in family. Maybe Miguel want to say that in close people, some gestures are the same. So, for example, otherwise I didn't understand the question, because gesture synchronization in family, what means for Miguel?
Probably what some personalized gestures used in the family, not common for all other people.
But this is not a gesture synchronization. This is a gesture code adopted by a community.
Yes.
It's different. It has nothing to do with the synchronization of gesture while speaking, for example. It's a code. Like sign language is a code adopted by deaf people in order to communicate between them.
Okay, yes. Well, one more from Jaime is one of the objectives in the future for these studies is the identification of depression through facial gestures and from the voice to be implemented in robots or systems or intelligent systems that can be used for companion persons with these diseases. Well, the question is in Spanish. I am trying to translate. Probably it is related to the use of this kind of experiments, if they can be used for identifying depression or through the facial gestures, or also to be implemented in robots?
Yes, I mean, I understand that it's Jamie Fernando Sanchez. This is the question. I think.
You're watching the question, so.
I mean, let me answer to Jamie first of all.
Okay.
Jamie Fernando Sanchez Salcido. So for Jamie, I will say yes. The final aim, like I say at the beginning of my talk, is that we want to develop assistance for vulnerable people. And this assistant can be virtual agents or can be physical robot. In both the case, in order to assist people, we need to provide not a general assistant, but a personalized assistant. So we need that the system knows the culture in which his user is embedded. We need that the system knows the social rule, but then at the end, the system should be adaptive and should learn day by day, like we do, like we humans do with people, the need and the request of the user. But the final aim is, yes, to develop robots or intelligent systems that can serve as a companion for vulnerable people like elder, or for children with autism, children with aggressive behavior, just to answer to Victor, because the next question of Victor Manuel Batis Beltran is it possible to use this study to detect aggressive behavior? Yes, it's possible. It's possible to set up experiments that show, for example, that children that have been diagnosed with aggressive behavior, in narrating the story of Tweety and Sylvester, their gestures and their way to narrate may differ greatly from the typical children. And so this will tell you that there is a different behavior in this case. Okay, and then I have another question from Lucia Barron. And she say, did you consider other corpus for the experiment? Oh, yes, a lot of corpus. We are doing several experiments. Currently, we are doing experiments with several other, okay, let me, I can show you some other corpus that we are using, but I am not able to,
Anna, also there was another question before the Lucia.
Okay, I'm trying to go back to, okay.
Okay.
Because, okay. I want to show to Lucia some other, another kind, other database. So in order to do so, I can, show, this was a talk that I was giving yesterday to another conference, okay? And is, can you see? Can you see
No, you are not sharing the screen.
Okay, so, okay, that's one thing that I want to say, okay? So I will share the screen, where I am. Okay. This is another talk. Now you can see? No? Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. And so these are some agents, for example, with the personality. These are some other agents with different personality, but I want to show you another thing. So no, it's not here. No, it's not. Okay. Okay, wrong presentation. Okay, let me see if I can. Maybe I can show the paper we were writing. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, this is a current paper we are working on, and for example, we are using another database. With this database is called the FACE database, and he has old user, he has the middle-aged user and young user. So you can see that there is a difference in perceiving emotion on differently aged phase. This is one thing that we are trying to show on, okay, and then, okay, another thing I want to show you is another database too. This is a kind of naturalistic database in which we are showing more naturalistic emotional phase, and also in this case that this exists in is available. You may ask the people and they will send you. It's called the SQ database, and then we have our own database, which are we have different database too. I'm trying to figure out where are the database. Okay, let me see if it's here. Let me see. I'm not sure the database is here. This is another paper that we are working on. I want to see if there are some other databases that we developed too. And there should be an example here. I am sorry, I am okay, these are some children phase and adult phase. Can you see them?
No, Anna, we are watching virtual agent acceptance by elders.
Okay. So...
But I think we need to finish because...
okay. Okay, in any case, there are...
You can see the...
Can you see me now?
You can answer there later.
Okay.
We can send them to you.
Okay. Okay, my email, any case, my email is Anna. So people can contact me at this email.
Okay, and we just to finish, we want to thank you very much to be here with us today.
That's been a pleasure.
It is not the right way to be in a seminar. We would like to have you here in Mexico, but I hope next time we will have you here.
Yeah, I hope to be there next time, but I hope also to have some of you here. Remember, if there will be the opportunity, we will have a WIRN this year, in June next year, hoping that this story of emergency finish.
WIRN is still holding IIASS or Vietri or where?
Yeah, we're still in Vietri.
Okay.
You know the place very well.
Yes.
You know where you have to go.
Yeah, I like to be there again, so I keep in touch with you.
And any case, maybe I want to tell you that we have organized several things. We have at the moment some research topic in cognitive info communication in frontiers. And I just asked the people in frontiers to extend the deadline. But then we have also another journal, Acta Politecnica Hungarica, another special issue. And I am doing another special issue with in robotics with some colleague. So I'll send you all this information. And if you are interested, or any of you is interested in some way, really, I would invite you to contribute to this special issue.
Okay, but several here in the organization committee work on emotions and several of your topics. So we will be glad to have that information and to collaborate if it is possible with you.
That will be nice for me.
Okay, thank you very much, and we will keep in touch. And all the organizing committee is here, so all of them.
Grazie a tutti, grazie a tutti.
Gracias, Ana. Thank you.
Grazie Alice. Bye bye.
Hasta luego.
Bye.
Chao.